Hey guys, welcome back. Drip Coach here, where we don't trust, we verify, and operate with integrity and transparency. Today, doing a clip from Mark Yusko. I love listening to Mark. It's been a while since I've had any of his content on, and this was recorded by the time you guys see it, maybe about 2 weeks ago at the October all-time high for Bitcoin. I'm about to be heading out to the airport, head to Bolivia. Fun fact, quick segue, but it ties into staying humble, stacking sats. Bolivia, from my brief search on Airbnb, has some of the cheapest condos, apartments, multiple bedroom locations that I have seen. So I'll be showing the clips from that when I get there. But anyway, we got about 8 minutes from Mark, and it's essentially tied to how currency debasement is affecting, how we value or evaluate Bitcoin. And we looking at right now, Bitcoin, basically this entire year, it's been sitting in a range and hasn't done what we would call much of anything. But when you evaluate it against other currencies, like he talks about the Lira, it's gone up tremendously because the Lira has gone down tremendously. Let's take a listen.
Video. There's an inevitability about Bitcoin's price in dollars or yen or euros or whatever you want to price it in, rising as countries devalue their fiat currency. And the more they devalue, the higher the price. It's funny. Most of us talk about Bitcoin in dollars. That's our kind of reference point. But like if you looked at Bitcoin in Lira, it's been making all-time highs for years because the Lira has literally devalued 99.9%. Same thing in Venezuela. So there's this, I call it home market myopia, where
quick thing, he just kind of name dropped Venezuela. And yeah, I told you guys about that multiple times. Still waiting to get my Spanish instructor on here to give me boots on the ground information. But I met another girl out here who just been here like 3 months. Her family's still in Venezuela, but she came here for work. So yeah, when your economy collapses, you kind of have to do whatever it takes because your entire livelihood is tied to that thing that you have no agency or control over. And again, it's so foreign for us because most of us have not lived in an economy that's seen this level of collapse. Sure, you're losing X% per year due to inflation and debasement, but you can continue working. When you have to say, oh shit, I got to pack things up and run across the border, that's a very different, probably, how would you say, like emotional feeling, safety, security, mind shift, because everything you've known literally just gets flipped overnight. And I can only talk about it secondhand from people, and I can see what they have to do, but it's by no means even an inkling of what it would be if you had to go through it yourself.
one, you think all the smart people are in your home market, which is clearly not true. Two, you think you dominate every market. Like, all the stocks are traded in the United States. Well, that's not actually true. I mean, some of our stocks now are crazy valuations, so they dwarf, NVIDIA dwarfs the entire Japanese market in the MSCI World Index. I mean, and Spain and France, and that can definitely happen. But in digital assets, I think it's interesting. You got our president saying, "Oh, we want to be the crypto capital of the world," and then the Bitcoiners like, "No, we want to be the Bitcoin capital of the world." Okay, fine, but neither one's going to happen, right? We're 20-odd% of global activity. Binance is orders of magnitude bigger than Coinbase. As great as Coinbase is, and as great as Kraken and Gemini and these other exchanges are, Binance runs circles around them on a global basis. So, Tether is this gigantic beast of a company. We're all excited about Circle, right? Circle goes public. Great. Goes up to $40 billion market cap. Fantastic. Excited for Jeremy and the crew.
Pause there too, because the Binance piece he mentioned about how big it is. I showed a clip before when they had the big blowout and people were calling for, them to be investigated and all this stuff. They're so big. I'm not gonna say they're too big to fail, but people that hate on Binance and don't like who they are, what they've done or whatever, I get it. I haven't looked under the hood to see any of the, controversial stuff, but when you're calling for a collapse of Binance, that will cripple the entire industry because like 60 some odd percent of crypto globally is tied directly to Binance. That's why I say, to me, it's a kind of asymmetrical bet. I'm not buying BNB at these all-time highs, but they're going to keep, like, it literally stands for build and build. They're going to keep building. And crypto is still so new that there are multiple opportunities in this behemoth. And hopefully over time, they get better. They are a centralized exchange. They are a centralized DeFi platform. Forgot how many validators there are, but there's only a handful. But with centralization comes speed and things of that nature, and the ability to innovate faster without all the red tape. So there's definitely pros and cons, but it's just something to keep in mind that they will be here for the foreseeable future, barring any black swan events.
But I heard a stat that Tether makes more every 4 days than Circle will make in a year. So what's that worth? Now they're trying to raise money, I heard, at a $500 billion valuation, which would make it the second largest bank by market cap in the world behind JP Morgan. Pretty impressive for a company with like 50 employees. So that's a rambling, kind of strange answer to your question about how to feel about the all-time high, but it is a high, right? I mean, 126 yesterday is higher than we've ever been. But when you inflation adjust and you look at it relative to how much devaluation has occurred and how much M2 has been created and actually what gold prices have done, we're actually not at a high. Now, I think we'll get there. If I'm in a free market and I can compete against that person, I'm going to try to win business by maybe underpricing or making something better, both deflationary. Well, if the market's not free, right? If there are barriers or tariffs or restrictions or regulations, then you tend toward inflation. Well, if you manipulate the price of money, meaning in a free market, people would bid openly on the acceptable return that they would take for safety, right? Someone say, well, I need 6%. Someone else say, well, I need 5.5. I need 5. I need 4.5. And there's a natural market clearing price for risk assets. Well, in a world where a bunch of old white guys, I hate to say it, but a bunch of old white guys decide what the interest rate is, that's not a free market. That's market manipulation. And so in that environment, you get a persistent theft, and I use the word intentionally, of real wealth from the masses to the few. So
and I've mentioned this so many times, but I just like the way he kind of articulates that. It's like, yeah, who created, well, we know who created it, but this central bank ideology, if you sit back and actually kind of understand what's happening, it's like, yeah, why are we sitting around letting this happen? If the government is for the people, by the people, and if those people woke up, I think it's that quote by one of the other presidents, is like, if people understood how money worked, there'd be riots in the streets tomorrow. But they do such a great job of hiding things in plain sight, pitching this 2%, maybe now even 3% inflation rate. And this is to control money so that it's more stable and they can build things on top of it because it is broken and it cannot flex and bend to the free market. But there's, just something fascinating in that mindset or bullshit we've been sold that many of us, hell, the bulk of the population, just accept. And it makes absolutely no sense. This is why it's so hard for people to understand or wrap their head around Bitcoin, because been so entrenched in drinking the Kool-Aid on the existing system that your brain will not let you accept another ideology or belief system.
Income and wealth ownership, that divide becomes greater and greater and greater. And today it's the highest it's ever been in history. I think it's interesting. Like, I understand why the people in the club, right? They say it's a small club and you ain't in it, right? I understand why the people in the club want that. What I don't really understand is why the rest of us don't pick up the pitchforks, literally, at some point and say, no mas. Like, we want open and free markets. We don't want this manipulated market. Inflation, like, who convinced an entire population of people that taking half of my purchasing power every 30 years is a good thing? That makes no sense, right? I mean, I worked hard for that money. If you work and get paid in Bitcoin, you're no longer a slave because your money actually appreciates. Now, here's the thing. Bitcoin didn't change. One Bitcoin. The Bitcoin we talked about 7 years ago and the Bitcoin today, it's the same thing. It's one Bitcoin. The amount of dollars you need from 16,000 to 126,000, that's different, but it's still the same Bitcoin. So what changed was the money got worse, not Bitcoin getting better. Now, Bitcoin did get better. It's got better hash rate. It's got more decentralization. It actually is better. The network is better. And that's why the value of it increases. But at the end of the day, it's the fiat that went down in value. And what's interesting about saving in Bitcoin versus saving in fiat, if you save in Bitcoin, and again, I'll give Jimmy full credit for this, he says you actually unleash the most powerful force in all of human history, which is human creativity. Because if you don't have to constantly be working and striving to preserve the purchasing power of your money, and your money actually grows, you have some time to think, to create, to maybe start a new business, right? Maybe build a new product. You don't have.
I can 100% co-sign on that. The level of background stress that has reduced for me, twofold. One, because I had clients and my job is in this time zone. So obviously moving from Cambodia to here, that was a big shift because there's a bunch of health perspectives in regards to sleeping, skater rhythms, all this kind of stuff. But the fact that now, literally with that shift and now, so that started dollar cost averaging heavy or more frequently. That was in January. The move was in May. So yeah, probably we'll call it May, April. No, March, April is when I started just putting all of my net worth into Bitcoin. And then that level of, stress that dropped because I now understand the money's broken. This is the new global free market money. I need to store all of my time and energy in this thing. And it's kind of like Jeff Booth says, you'll have this cognitive dissonance when you're kind of being hypocritical. It's like, oh, I have dollars and I'm saving dollars. And yet I'm trying to tell everyone how good Bitcoin is and how we need to shift to it. And I'm still looking at it as a hedge or as this thing to trade against. But now that I'm literally all in, because my entire paycheck, dollar cost average, every bit of money I get goes into Bitcoin. And then I fund my daily expenses on my credit card. Then I use the loan against my Bitcoin for that 30-day accrual to pay off the credit card. Yeah, it's literally shifted everything because I know I'm saving all of my money in this thing. And I know that over the last, 16 years, if you average it out, it's gone 50% CAGR, 50% compound annual growth rate. And that means every 18 months, my net worth will double. I have not been in long enough to see that because I just started this, as I said, completely around March of this year. But like Mark just mentioned, it's like who convinced us that the opposite was better, that every roughly 30 years with a 2% compound growth rate of inflation, that they steal half of your money. Like, why is that better? Why is that the system that we all agreed to? Why not take the risk of putting it into the other system where every 18 months it'll compound, or as Michael Saylor says, it'll flatten out to 30% CAGR. So that's about every 3 years it's going to compound, 3 to 5. Can't remember the exact math, but 3 to 5 years, your net worth doubles versus right now, the interest rates, we'll call it 3, is what they set it at. It's actually closer to 12. So that means every roughly 10 to 15 years, your net worth is getting cut in half. So you choose.
Have to just do this slave labor and get paid in this depreciating asset. So again, long answer to an interesting question, but it to me, it all kind of weaves together in that why Bitcoin is such an important innovation, why the construct of money is changing. Look, money is a very unique thing. It's an asset that exists in the absence of a liability, right? That's what money is. And that basically the only thing that meets that criteria that is used is gold. Silver meets that criteria, copper, puka shells. There are a lot of things that would meet that. But the only one that's been used for 5,000 years, roughly, because of belief and custom, is gold. But gold, we've talked about this before, gold suffers from two problems. It's not very portable, meaning it's really heavy and you can't stuff it in your pocket, a gold bar, and walk through. Actually, you can walk through the the metal detector because it's inert. But anyway, so gold isn't very portable and it's not very divisible. Like if I had a bar and I wanted to break it in half, I'm not strong enough. And even if I could break it in half, I couldn't stuff it in the computer and send it to you. All the Bitcoin in the world fits right here. Now I don't have any on my phone. Don't SIM swap me. It's not worth it. I keep mine in cold storage. In fact, I'm wearing my Chili Willy socks today for Bitcoin cold storage. The point is that it's also very divisible. I can send you 1/100 millionth of a Bitcoin, right? That's a 1 Satoshi. I can send you 1 Satoshi for free, and that's better than the current system. People often get...
So that's a great place to end it, because it's like you said, is we've had these other things that have been money and that we've accepted as money. But Bitcoin is the natural evolution of that, because we've never had a global free market where you have the money yourself and then you can send it fractionally in minutes to someone anywhere in the world. There was never a global market, period, because you needed that with the internet. That's the 90s, right? So before that, you could only get global goods based off of wholesale distributors, manufacturers, access to capital, things of that nature. But now, no matter where you live, you can put your product online and someone somewhere else can buy it. And yes, you still have to use those logistic rails. You can't shove the product into the computer, as Mark just said. But fun fact, with the way that things are going digital and living more and more of your digital life in this new age, I'm sure we will get to that. You'll still have to exist physically, but there's being clearly more and more digital products being sold. So Bitcoin just solves all of those problems. Like you said, you can break it down into 100 million. And even if we go to Bitcoin dollar parity, where 1 sat is $1, it's still extremely small and divisible. So we got a long ways to go before that. But yeah, just continue diving down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, because it is the only solution at this stage. Like, you either trust fiat, regardless of the track record and the writing on the wall, or you have decided to verify and get orange pilled and go with the Bitcoin route. Like, there is no in between, or as Saylor said, there is no second best money. So this battle will shake itself out. And I'm still in the camp, keep echoing this, that it will turn to, 3 to 5 global currencies. The yen, which is slowly being backed by gold at this stage. The dollar, which is going to be backed by treasuries and maybe this other crypto stockpile, Bitcoin strategic reserve, whatever assets, and Bitcoin. And then the euro, it's kind of the dollar as well. That's kind of where I see it. That's what, 4 euro, dollar, yen, Bitcoin. Yeah, I'm sure there'll be one more out there, but we'll see. All right, smash that HBO Special, help brother out. Like, subscribe, comment down below, and until next time, live daily and achieve your impossible. See ya.